10:46 p.m. January 2nd, 2006, Mar-a-Lago, Florida. President Donald Trump picks up a secure phone, listens for exactly 14 seconds.
Execute.
2 words that will change history. Execute. Now, at that exact moment, across 20 military bases spanning the Western Hemisphere, aircraft engines roar to life. Delta Force operators check their weapons one final time. HIA intelligence officers transmit final coordinates. And 150 warplanes begin moving toward a single target. Not a terrorist compound, not a military installation, a presidential palace. What I'm about to tell you isn't speculation, isn't rumor, isn't theory. This happened 6 days ago. And it's the most audacious military operation America has conducted since we killed Osama bin Laden. This is Operation Absolute Resolve. The night the United States military invaded a sovereign nation, bombed its capital, and kidnapped its president. And you're about to learn why nobody could stop us. Let me take you back, because this didn't start on January 3rd. This started the moment Nicolás Maduro decided that Venezuela, a nation sitting on the world's largest proven oil reserves, would become a narco-state. Not metaphorically, literally. Literally, the U.S. Department of Justice indicted Maduro on charges of narco-terrorism, cocaine trafficking, and possession of machine guns and destructive devices for use against the United States. But indictments mean nothing when the person you're charging controls an entire country. So Trump did something unprecedented. He doubled the bounty on Maduro's head. 25 million? Not enough. 50 million. The largest bounty in USS history, more than El Chapo, more than Bin Laden, more than anyone. But money alone doesn't capture a president surrounded by Cuban intelligence agents, Russian military advisors, and an entire army. So the Pentagon began positioning assets. Quietly, methodically. USS Iwo Jima, a 40,000-ton amphibious assault ship deployed to the Caribbean. 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, including the USS Jason Dunham, took up positions in international waters. F-35 stealth fighters deployed to Puerto Rico. And deep inside Venezuelan territory, CA operatives began mapping Maduro's movements, his patterns, his security protocols, his vulnerabilities. They weren't planning an arrest, they were planning an invasion. September 5th, 2005, the USS Jason Dunham, cruising in international waters, 40 nautical miles off Venezuela's coast. Radar picks up 2 contacts, high speed, inbound. Venezuelan F-16 fighters, armed American-made jets that we sold them in the 1980s, now being used against us. They don't just fly by, they buzz the destroyer, a show of force. Close enough that sailors on deck can see the Venezuelan markings. Close enough to be a threat. The next day, they do it again. Turning into a game of chicken, Pentagon officials warned. Trump's response was direct. If they fly in a dangerous position, they're going to be shot down. But Venezuela wasn't done testing America's resolve. On September 2nd, U.S. forces struck a boat allegedly carrying drugs from Venezuela. 11 people killed, members of the Tren de Aragua gang. Venezuela's response? Maduro called U.S. warships a criminal and bloody threat and deployed drones and warships to patrol the coastline. The chess pieces were moving, both sides escalating, both sides preparing, but only one side knew what was about to happen. Inside the White House Situation Room, the plan took shape, codenamed Operation Absolute Resolve. The objective, capture Nicolás Maduro alive. Put him on trial for narco-terrorism. The challenge, he's in Caracas, protected by Venezuelan military, Cuban intelligence, Russian advisors, surrounded by layered air defenses and thousands of loyal troops. How do you execute a mission like that? You don't send a SEAL team on helicopters like Bin Laden, you send an entire air force. The planning was meticulous, obsessive. CIA operatives on the ground identified Maduro's location, Fort Tiuna, his residence in Caracas. Intelligence confirmed his wife, Cilia Flores, would be there. Security patterns analyzed, air defense positions mapped, escape routes blocked. And then, the operational plan, Phase 1, suppress Venezuelan air defenses with overwhelming airstrikes. Phase 2, Delta Force extraction team infiltrates Caracas. Phase 3, capture Maduro and Flores. Extract to USS Iwo Jima. Phase 4, transport to New York for arraignment. Simple on paper, catastrophic if anything went wrong, because this wasn't Afghanistan, this wasn't Iraq, this was a sovereign nation with a functioning military, with international allies, with the ability to fight back. But Trump gave the order anyway. January 2nd, 46 p.m. execute, now. And across the Western Hemisphere, the machinery of American military power spun into motion. 2000 am, January 3rd, 2060, Caracas, Venezuela. Most of the city is asleep, streetlights casting orange glows, traffic minimal. The presidential palace quiet. Then, without warning, the northern sky erupts. Explosions? Massive, sequential, deliberate. Air defense radar installations gone, communications towers obliterated, military command posts destroyed. Over 50 USS aircraft fighters, bombers, electronic warfare planes executing a coordinated strike across northern Venezuela. Targets in Caracas, Miranda State, Aragua, La Guaira. The shockwaves rattled windows across the capital. Linda Unamumo, a public worker, later described the explosion that hit near her home. It destroyed the roof of my house. I was still crying. I was crying because I was so scared. In Cadia Lamar, strikes hit a 3-story civilian apartment building. One person killed, another seriously injured. The exterior wall simply gone. This wasn't precision. This was shock and awe. The Venezuelan military tried to respond. Anti-aircraft fire lit up the night. Missiles launched blindly into the darkness. But American aircraft were operating with technology Venezuela couldn't counter. Stealth bombers invisible to radar. Electronic warfare systems jamming communications. Precision-guided munitions hitting targets from altitudes Venezuelan weapons couldn't reach. Within 15 minutes, Venezuela's ability to defend its own airspace was functionally destroyed. And that's when the helicopters came. Flying at 100 feet above the water to avoid radar detection, Delta Force operatives crossed into Venezuelan airspace. Not SEAL Team 6, not Rangers. Delta Force, the most elite counterterrorism unit in the American military. Their mission, Fort Tiuna, Maduro's residence, and they were about to walk into a firefight. Fort Tiuna wasn't just a presidential residence, it was a fortress. Venezuelan Presidential Guard, Cuban military personnel, Russian intelligence advisors, all of them armed, all of them trained, all of them willing to die protecting Maduro. The Delta team didn't land at the front gate. They breached from multiple entry points simultaneously. Overwhelming force, coordinated chaos, flashbangs, gunfire, shouting in Spanish and English. The Presidential Guard fought back hard. Anonymous Venezuelan officials later confirmed at least 40 people killed in the operation, updated to 80. The Cuban government reported that 32 Cubans were killed, all members of armed forces and intelligence services. Trump later confirmed this. Many Cubans lost their lives last night. They were protecting Maduro. That was not a good move. This wasn't a surgical strike. This was urban combat. Delta operators clearing rooms, neutralizing threats, moving with lethal precision toward Maduro's location. Venezuelan troops returned fire. Some surrendered. Some fought to the death. But Delta Force doesn't lose close quarters battles. Room by room, floor by floor. They advanced. And then, in a bedroom on the upper level of the residence, they found him. Nicolás Maduro, president of Venezuela, still in his clothes. Stunned. Surrounded by operators who just fought through his guards to reach him, he didn't resist. Neither did his wife, Cilia Flores, who was captured alongside him. Both were immediately restrained, blindfolded, sound-canceling headphones placed over their ears, and then they were moving, fast, back to the extraction point, back to the helicopters. As American aircraft continued pounding Venezuelan positions to cover their escape. 7 U.S. soldiers were wounded in the operation. Shrapnel, gunfire, but all survived. The mission, success, 5201 M Venezuelan time, 4221 M Eastern. Donald Trump post social, not a statement. And a photograph. Nicolás Maduro, on board the USS Iwo Jima, blindfolded, wearing sound-canceling headphones, gray Nike sweatsuit, holding a plastic water bottle. The image is jarring, surreal, historical. The president of a sovereign nation captured in U.S. military custody. Trump's caption, Nicolás Maduro on board the USS Iwo Jima. That photo went global instantly, viral within minutes. Social media exploded, news agencies scrambled, world leaders reacted, because this wasn't just an arrest, this was a message to every narco-terrorist, every dictator, every enemy of the United States. We can reach you, anywhere, anytime. Later that afternoon, Maduro was transferred from the Iwo Jima to a military aircraft. Destination, Stewart Air National Guard Base. New York. The flight took hours. Maduro remained blindfolded, silent. And when the plane landed at 4:30 p.m., federal agents were waiting. And then came the moment that will define this operation for history, the Perp walk. Maduro, in handcuffs, flanked by DEA agents, walking into the Drug Enforcement Administration headquarters in Manhattan, cameras everywhere, flashes. Shouting reporters, a president, reduced to a defendant. On January 5th, he appeared in Manhattan federal court. Charges, narco-terrorism, cocaine trafficking, conspiracy to import cocaine, possession of machine guns and destructive devices for use against the USS. His plea, not guilty. But the evidence against him? Overwhelming. Years of intelligence, intercepted communications, witness testimony, financial records. This wasn't a symbolic arrest, this was prosecution. The global response was immediate and sharply divided. Condemnation. Brazil President Lula called it crossing an unacceptable line. Secretary General Antonio Guterres deeply alarmed. These developments constitute a dangerous precedent. Russia's foreign ministry, an unacceptable assault on Venezuela's sovereignty. China, deeply shocked by Washington's blatant use of force against a sovereign state. Mexico condemns the military intervention. International law experts universally agreed this operation violated the UN Charter and Venezuela's sovereignty. Democratic lawmakers in Congress were furious. Senator Tim Kaine introduced a resolution to block use of armed forces against Venezuela without congressional authorization. Senator Bernie Sanders condemned the strikes, warning of global instability. Senator Ruben Gallego called it simply, "This war is illegal." Even some Republicans expressed concerns. Senator Mark Warner, does this mean any large country can indict the ruler of a smaller adjacent country and take that person out? This would lead to total chaos. But inside the Venezuelan diaspora, celebration. Miami, New York, Madrid, Caracas neighborhoods opposed to Maduro. People dancing in the streets, waving Venezuelan flags, crying with joy, because to them, this wasn't an invasion, this was liberation. One Venezuelan exile in Miami told reporters, "We've waited for this moment for years. Maduro is a narco-terrorist. He destroyed our country. Thank you, America." The moral debate will rage for decades. Was this justified law enforcement or illegal regime change? Was this protecting American interests or imperial aggression? The answer depends on who you ask. But one thing is undeniable, America did it, and nobody could stop us. He's in chaos. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, sworn in as acting president, denounced Maduro's capture as a kidnapping. She declared 7 days of mourning for those killed in the operation. She called for calm and unity to defend the country. But her authority? Questionable. The Venezuelan military is fractured. Some units loyal to Rodriguez, some to opposition leaders, some waiting to see who Washington backs. Trump initially claimed the USS would run Venezuela until a transition government could be established. He specifically mentioned having American oil companies manage Venezuela's struggling nationalized industry. Because let's be clear, this is about oil. Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves, 5.5 trillion cubic meters of natural gas, and Trump wants U.S. companies controlling it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio later walked back the "Run Venezuela" statement, but the intent is obvious. This wasn't just about arresting Maduro. This was about reshaping Venezuela's future, and Trump's already looking at the next targets. Cuba and Nicaragua are next. Representative Mario Diaz-Balart, tyrannies in Cuba and Nicaragua would not survive the Trump administration. Their days are counted. This isn't one operation. This is the opening move in a regional transformation. Monroe Doctrine 2.0. America asserting dominance over Latin America like we haven't since the 1980s, and with Trump in office, there's no telling where this ends. Let me bring this home. 6 days ago, the United States did something we haven't done since Panama in 1989. We launched a full-scale military invasion of a sovereign nation. We bombed their capital. We killed over 80 people, including foreign nationals. We captured the president and flew him to New York in handcuffs. And we did it all without asking permission, without approval, without congressional authorization. Just executive power, military might, and the will to use it. The legal scholars will debate this for years. The international community will condemn it. The history books will struggle to categorize it. But here's what matters right now. It worked. Maduro is in a New York jail cell awaiting trial. Venezuela is in turmoil. And every dictator, every cartel leader, every enemy of America just learned a terrifying lesson. If we want you, we'll come get you, and your borders won't stop us. Operation Absolute Resolve wasn't just about one man. It was about sending a message to the world. America is back. America is aggressive. And America is done playing by rules that protect our enemies. Whether you think that's justified or terrifying probably depends on which side of the border you're on. But either way, the world just changed. Welcome to Operation Thunderbolt. Welcome to America's shadow war. And this is just the beginning.